Right, okay, first of all, if you could just start for us by recalling your events briefly of Munich Air Disaster, because I really wouldn't have had much chance to hear about that so far. So.
Probably the saddest occasion in football, especially for Manchester United Football Club, the people of Manchester. I was playing at Blackburn Rovers at the time, and I caught a train back in the afternoon, Thursday the 6th. Train got into Victoria Station, and walking through the station with a pal of mine, Paddy Kennedy, and he said to me, Sandy, have you seen the placards? And I looked at it and it says Manchester United an air crash, and at first it didn't hit me, and I probably walked on for about 10 yards or so, and then crash. No, if it said Man United in it, air freight, something like that. Right, so I dived to the telephone booth, phoned home, and an auntie from Scotland was staying with us that week, and she just kept on screaming, "Come home, Sandy, you've got to come home straight away." Then I knew it was serious. I'm getting home. The house was like Piccadilly Station, because I think everybody thought that the Busby family would be getting the first messages back from Munich, you know, and due to the bad weather, etc., we weren't getting a lot of information through early on. Then it started to dribble through that certain people had died, but we still hadn't heard about my dad. Of course, my mother, she went into what you'd call a semi-coma. Couldn't talk to her. She was just sat looking into the fireplace. As I said before, you know, like the house was like a village station, because Frank Swift, who was a great friend of my dad's, and of course our family together, his wife and daughter had come round to get information. There was a great reporter called Henry Rose, and his girlfriend was in the house waiting for information. And the terrible thing was that these two people died in the crash. Then I was upstairs in my bedroom. I'm not a great religious person, but I was praying in the bedroom, and then my uncle come running up the stairs, shouting, "He's alive, he's alive!" And the relief was unbelievable. But at the same time, there were still messages coming through. Tommy Taylor died, Roger Byrne, and he went through a lot of that. The 8 died. And the following morning we were straight off to Munich. The EA arranged the plane to Munich. We arrived in Munich, and the taxi driver, broken English and broken German, said to us, "Right, I'll take you to the hotel." And I said, "No, you don't. You take us to the hospital straight away." "No, hospital." And went to the hospital, and the great man, Professor Moira, who was in charge of the hospital, came down with an interpreter and also some of his assistant doctors, etc., surgeons, doctors. And he started going through the people that were alive. And he said, Busby, no. He shook his head, no. And once again, my mother nearly collapsed. So she said, could we go up and see my dad? I went home. And there in this oxygen tent was this grey-faced man. It was terrible. And of course, it took 2 months for him to recover. And the crash. He never spoke about the crash, but it was always in the back of his mind.
It was quite well documented last year, earlier this year, that you and your family were quite happy with the BBC film that was made about the events. What, can you tell us what exactly your problems were with that?
No, that was they called United.
Yeah.
There's no more than United. Man in the Moon. They had my dad looking like a gangster in it, with a big coat on. And my father was one of the first tracksuit managers in football after the war, and they had him like with this overcoat and this stupid hat on the touchline, and no, I mean, even going through the situation as regards, they never mentioned in that film Roger Byrne, who was our captain, and he was playing for England, and he never got mentioned. Big Tommy Taylor, great centre forward, never got mentioned. And these, they mentioned about 3 or 4 players, but where were the others? Rubbish, absolute rubbish. And some of the stories was crap. Excuse my language.
In your opinion, what could have become of that team then? Because everybody says they could have been one of the best teams ever.
Without a doubt. The great the manager of Liverpool, Bob Paisley, he said, quote, that team would have won everything for the next 10 years. Everything. And they would have done. They had the depth, they had the skill, they had everything. Going through the team, the lad I've just mentioned, Roger Byrne, he was class fullback. He had big Duncan Edwards, one of the greatest players ever. Tommy Taylor. A good story about Tommy was the gentleman I mentioned before, the reporter Henry Rose had put in the paper he'd got selected for England, Tommy, and Henry Rose had put in the paper, the Daily Express, if Tommy Taylor is an England player, I'm Father Christmas. And that Saturday, Tommy Taylor went out and scored a hat-trick. So on the Monday, fair play to Henry Rose, there was a cartoon on the back page, Henry Rose dressed up as Father Christmas, which was very good, you know. He realised that he made a blunder in saying that he wasn't good enough for England. And a pal of mine at Blackburn Rovers was a lad called Brian Douglas, who played for England in the 58 England squad. And he said that if they'd had the 3 players, they got killed, which was Roger Byrne, Duncan Edwards and Tommy Taylor, he thought that they would definitely have won the World Cup that year, 1958. They were magnificent. They just started to take the mantle off the great Real Madrid side. They were reaching that peak. And I think Real Madrid realised it as well.
Given the players that his father had on his side at that time, and he built up again over the next 10-15 years, who would he rate as the best player that he ever managed? You had likes of Charlton, Law, Edwards, Best.
My dad would I think my dad, Stuart, would have told you, there was that many great players. I don't think, well, he would probably picked out 2. That would be Edwards the best.
The boy from the country of Ireland, and I knew I could make you shine. Cause you move like a downtown dancer, with your hair hung down like a mane, and your feet playing tricks like a juggler, as you weave to the sound of your name. Georgie, Georgie, they call you the Belfast boy. Georgie, Georgie, they call you the Belfast boy. And they say, Georgie, Georgie, keep your feet on the ground. Georgie, Georgie, when you listen to the sound. Georgie, Georgie, put a light on your name. Hey, hey, hey. Play the game. Play the game.
Can you imagine when this race is run? Tired old faces into the sun, praising our leaders, getting in tune. Music's played by the madman. Forever young, I wanna be forever young. Do you really wanna live forever? Forever, forever, forever young. I wanna be forever young. Do you really wanna live forever? Forever, forever.
The great story about Duncan, I think, was when he was 15 years of age, he was playing for England schoolboys, of course. And Joe Mercer, who was a great pal of my dad's, a great footballer, great manager. And at that time, he phones my dad up, and he was coaching England schoolboys for the FA. He phoned my dad up. He says, Matt, he says, there's a boy down playing for the England schoolboys. He's from Dudley, which is next door to Wolverhampton, right? And he said, he has got everything, absolutely everything. So my dad got hold of Joe Armstrong straight away. Joe, get down to Dudley. Who was his chief scout? Joe Armstrong. Get down to Dudley, because everybody will be after him. And that's how they signed the big fella on. He had everything. I think he was born with, first of all, physique. He had a fantastic physique, skill, and a nice personality.
So after the crash and after his recovery, was your father ever close to retiring straight away? Was he always determined to fight back?
He not so much retiring as going back to the hospital where he was very ill for a good fortnight, 3 weeks. He had the lacerations twice, and he knew, of course, it was serious, but he hadn't heard anything really, and I don't think he wanted to ask anybody what had happened to the other people involved, players, his staff, the reporters. There was a supporter on the Willie Satnoff, who I think would have been the next director of Manchester United Football Club during that spell. And then all of a sudden, someone, doctor or nurse, had said, "Have you heard Duncan Edwards has died?" That night, my mother went into the hospital, and he said, "All right," he said, I've got to know everything." And he said to my mother, "I know what will upset you trying to talk about, so just nod your head or shake your head." And he went through the players, and he went through the staff, and he went through the reporters, etc. And she was nodding her head, shaking her head. At the end of it, you can imagine the emotional situation. They were both very upset. And after, I don't know, a bit of time, he turned around and said, "Well, that's me finished with football."